Welcome back to another episode of Friday Night Frights. I am most sorry for the delay in this, what you call in the 21st century, a video. Had trouble with this new device I have. It's called a Wi-Fi. Not your Wi-Fi that you wed, but the Wi-Fi, that thing that you know. The 21st century. When I said was told that I'd live forever, I never thought I'd see the 21st century. I thought, oh my goodness, the 21st century. Oh, wow, that's so many years away. I mean, it was if it was the 1200s when I met my friend, and he said, come here, and I said, what do you want? And he said, oh, I haven't seen you in such a long time. He gave me a hug and bit me on the neck, and before I knew it, I couldn't stand outside in the sun, and it was just terrible. And he was such a pest, I had to move to Arizona, right, where it's sunny all the time. So I could only come out at night, and that's fine with me. But this fantastic invention called sunscreen allows me to come out during the day now. And boy, oh boy, how have I missed the sun. But my wife, give me a hard time, and I apologize, my friends. So let's get back to what we were doing. We're reading more scary stories to tell in the dark by Alvin Schwartz, and the drawings by Stephen Gammell. So I hope you're having a terrible evening. I mean terrible as in monster terrible, meaning good. I don't wish any of the living to have a terrible evening, as in terrible on the human sense. I want you all to be happy. Happiness is good for the blood pressure. All right. So let me pick a good story here. Oh, I don't want to read about the guy that fell from a loft. Oh, here's a good one. It's called Clinkety Clink. Not Colonel Clink, Clinkety Clink. Butthead. This is Bonehead, by the way. No, it's not Colonel Clink. No, we're not talking about that TV show. Okay. You sit back there and you just listen and stay out of the way. Bonehead has been around for a very long time. I found him in the graveyard, just sitting there all by him, his lonesome. So Bonehead, you sit there and just shut up. An old lady got sick and died. That is terrible. She had no family and no close friends. So the neighbors got to a grave digger to dig a grave for her. Then they had a coffin made, and they placed it in her living room. Oh, that is so sweet. You place it in the living room. As was the tradition, they washed her body and dressed her up in her best clothes and put her in the coffin. When she died, her eyes were wide open, staring at everything and seeing nothing. The neighbors found 2 old silver dollars on her dresser, and they put them on her eyelids to keep them closed. Actually, that is a very old tradition, not only to keep the eyes closed, but to pay the ferryman to escort you into the afterlife. Because he doesn't do it for free. They lit candles and sat up with her so that she would not be lonely on her first night that she was dead. That is so very nice. I do that with my victims. When I want them to turn, I'll sit up with them and make sure that their progression is going well. Sometimes they just don't turn, and they turn. It gets pretty stinky. The next morning, the preacher came and said a prayer over her, and everybody went home. Later, the grave digger arrived to her to the cemetery and buried her. He stared at the silver dollars on her eyelids, and he picked them up. How shiny and smooth they were! How thick and heavy! They were beautiful. I like a good silver dollar, but I can't touch them. They burn my skin. He thought, just beautiful. He looked at the dead woman with her eyes wide open. He felt she was staring at him, watching him hold her coins. It gave him a creepy feeling. He put the coins back on her eyes, on those eyes of hers, to keep them closed. That was a good choice. I thought he was going to put them in his pocket. Just before he knew it, Hans reached out again and grabbed the coins and stuck them in his pocket. What a stinker! He said, I thought he was going to do the right thing and keep them with the lady, but he said, oh no, I'm going to keep these for myself. I need a beer after work. You know how it goes. What a stinker. Then he grabbed the hammer and quickly nailed shut the lid of the on the coffin. Now you can't see anything. Well, I don't like this guy very much. Do you have his address, anybody? I want to come and talk to him. Then he took her out to the cemetery where he buried her as fast as he could. When the grave digger got home, he put the $2 silver in a tin box and shook it. Chinka, chinka, chinka. You know that sound that it makes when you put money in the tin box? It goes shinka, shinka, right? The coins made a cheerful rattling around. But the grave digger wasn't feeling so cheerful as he should. That is just so disrespectful. You don't do that kind of thing. Wow, what a terrible man. He couldn't forget those eyes looking at him. I won't blame him. My gosh. When it got dark, a storm came up, and the wind started blowing. You know that kind of sound? You know, when your window's a little bit cracked? It blew around the house. It came in through the cracks, around the windows, down the chimney. He forgot to close the flue. You know why they call it the flue? Because when you open it, all the smoke flews right out. You don't get the flue from your chimney, so don't even start thinking about that. Bazoo, it bent. Busy, busy, bazoo. The fire flared and flickered. The grave digger threw some fresh wood on the fire and got into bed and pulled the blankets up to his chin. The wind kept blowing. Bazoo, it bent. Bazee, bazee, bazoo. Bazee, bazee, bazoo. How do you do? You took the coins off my eyes that come down your chimney flue. Blah, blah. I never said blah blah. Where did that even come from? But it sounds funny, doesn't it? The fire flared and flickered. The the cast of evil looking shadows on the wall. The gravedigger lay there thinking about the dead woman's eyes staring at him. That's why I never look the dead right into the eye. It bothers me. The wind blew stronger and louder. The fire flared and flickered. It popped and snapped, and he got more and more scared. Suddenly he heard another sound, clickety clank, clickety clank. It went clickety clank, clickety clank. It was the silver dollars rattling in the tin box. Hey, the gravedigger shouted. Who's taking my money? It wasn't your money in the first place, you Nimrod. It was the old lady's. And here's some of Mr. Gammell's beautiful artwork. I want this on a t-shirt. But all he heard was the wind blowing, bazee, bazee, bazoo. I never heard the wind go bazee, bazee, bazoo, but that's right. The flames flared and flickered and snapped and popping, and the coins going clickety clank, clickety clank. He leaped out the bed and chained up the door. Then he hurried back, but his head had barely touched the pillow when he heard clickety clank, clickety clank. What's that, bonehead? Yes, he wants you to know that the grain of knowledge in an empty skull makes a funny sound. He doesn't have a grain in his head. Then he heard something way off in the distance. Ouch, I laid on my hair. It was a voice saying, "There's my money. Who got my money? Who? Who?" What, is she an owl? You know, I say that too. Actually, the credit card company said, "Who got my money?" And then when I get my paycheck, you know, I'm in the Vampires Union and we get paid. When I get my paycheck, I was thinking I'd get more than that. And I said, "Who got my money?" It was that guy, Urs. That guy that takes money out of your paycheck for the Vampires Union fees. His name is Urs. And he says, "It's union dues." I said, "What dues the union do for me?" Okay, back to the story. And then the wind blew, bazee, bazee, bazoo. Then the fire flared, flickered, and snapped, and popped. And the money went clickety clank, clickety clank. The gravedigger was really scared. He got out the bed again. He pulled all the furniture against the door and put a heavy iron skillet over the tin box. Then jumped back into bed and covered up his head with his blankets. So jump in bed and cover your head because Ghost Lady comes tonight. I'm funny. Not really. But the money rattled louder than ever. And way off, the voice cried, "Give me my money. Who's got my money?" Who has my money is more appropriate English. We don't speak English. We speak slang. That's a new word that I learned from the homies out on the corner. It's called slang. Not a thing you put your arm in when it's hurt. Not that kind of slang, but words that really don't mean anything. Ooh, ooh. The wind blew and the fire flared and flickered and snapped and popped. And the gravedigger shivered and shook and cried, "Oh, he he blasphemed here, so I'm not going to say that. I'm a religious vampire, so I do my best not to blaspheme. Suddenly, the front door flew open and walked in the ghost of the dead woman with her eyes wide open. Kind of like that. You don't get that stare, that your kids kind of give you when you ask, who broke the window, and you get that kind of look on your face. That look your kids give you. But I know you don't have any eyes. See, he wants you to see he doesn't have any eyes, so he can't give you that. I know you can't. Just shut up, bonehead. Suddenly, the front door blew open, and in walked the ghost of the dead woman with her eyes wide open, staring at everything but seeing nothing. And the wind blew, bazee, bazee, bazoo, and the money went clickety clank, and the fire flared and flickered and snapped and popped, and the ghost of the dead woman cried, "Oh, where is my money? Who's got my money? Ooh. And the grave digger moaned, "Oh, my. That's why I normally don't grow hair. I do it for these videos. It just gets in your face. And the ghost could hear her money going clickety clank in the tin box. But her dead eyes couldn't see the box, so she reached out with her arms and tried to find it. The wind blew, bazee, bazee, bazoo. The money rattled clickety clank, and the fire flared and flickered and snapped and popped. The grave digger shivered and shook and moaned, "Oh, my. The woman cried, "Give me my money. Who's got my money? Oh, who? Ah!" That's what she said. It says right here. It says she screamed. But anyway, you got it, right? You got the money? Give it back to the old lady. Here's another one. She was spitting and yowling like a cat. With all that kind of yowling. It's a good picture by Stephen Gammell. It looks more like one of those Rorschach paintings. What do you see? What do I see in there? I see a bat with a cat in its stomach, and also see an idiot with an ice cream cone. Now, what does that say? Anybody studying psychology? An idiot with an ice cream cone? That's what I see. All right. The tales in this chapter are about an empty trunk, a neighbor who turns into a cat. I have a neighbor that does that. A strange drum, a very tasty sausage. Oh, I love a good sausage, especially when they snap when you bite them. I'm only half vampire. I'm what they call a vampire. So I still have some human traits, so I could eat human food if I want. But, a good bottle of AB negative, low in cholesterol. Oh man. Especially with just a little twist of lemon in it. Oh my goodness. Low in iron, low in cholesterol. Oh, that's heaven on earth. And I eat that with my sausages. So let's get into this story. This one's called The Bride. several brides I have. Yay. Sorry, this is a family channel. The minister's daughter had just gotten married. Oh, how sweet. After the wedding ceremony, there was a great feast with music and dancing, contests and games, even old children's games. I didn't know that you held contests and games at the wedding reception. Thought that was all about the bride and groom. You give them money and stuff, and they buy you expensive food, and you come and give them stuff, and then it's over, and you say, what do I do now? 17 wives I have. You know how many wedding receptions that is? That's very expensive. When they got to playing hide and seek, the bride decided to hide in her granddaughter's trunk up in the attic. They never find me here, she thought. Well, she was climbing into the trunk, and the lid came down and cracked on her head, and she fell unconscious inside, and the lid slammed shut and locked. Yeah, now they're really not going to find you, not until the summertime. No one will ever know how long she called for help or heard her struggling to free herself from that tomb. Everybody in the village searched for her, and they looked everywhere, but no one thought to look in the trunk. I saw that coming. After a week, a brand new bride and groom and others gave her up for lost. Years later, a maid went up into the attic looking for something she needed. Maybe it's in the trunk. Yeah, right, she thought, and she opened it and screamed, ah. There laid the missing bride in her wedding dress. By then, she was only a skeleton. Dang, how long did it take them to look for her? Gosh, skeletonized by that time? What a waste of a wedding dress. This other story is called Rings on Her Fingers. All right. Daisy Clark had been in a coma for more than a month when her doctor said that she had finally died. She was buried on a cool summer day in a small cemetery about a mile away from her home. Maybe she'll always rest in peace, her husband said, but she didn't. Late that night, a grave robber with a shovel and a lantern began to dig her up. He was a resurrectionist. That was big money back in the 1800s. Just a quick bit of history. There were people called resurrectionists that would dig up a fresh body and sell them to medical schools. This was pretty common in Edinburgh, Scotland. And they would sell these fresh bodies to the medical schools. And sadly, that is how we got a lot of our medical knowledge. So, sadly, but we learned from it. And they used to use people that were executed for research. But not a lot of people were being executed. So the schools were paying for people who were dying. So resurrectionists would dig them up within hours after them being buried. They'd sneak in there at night, pull them out of their coffin, carry them to the medical school and say, here, and they get a few pounds for them. You know, it's the sad truth of things, but that is how we learn medicine. Since the ground was still soft, she quickly reached the coffin and got it open. See, I told you, within a few hours. The hunch was right. Daisy had been buried wearing two valuable rings. A wedding ring with a diamond in it, and a ring with a ruby that glowed as if it were alive. And the thief got down on his knees and reached into the coffin to get the rings, but they were stuck fast on her fingers. How could they be stuck fast? I got stuck fast one time trying to fly into somebody's window, and they closed it, and my ring got stuck in there. That got stuck fast. And so he decided the only way to get them out was to cut her fingers with a knife. What a scumbag. But when he cut into her finger with the vetting ring, it began to bleed. Of course, they didn't embalm her, you idiot. And Daisy Clark began to stir. What was Daisy Clark stirring? Was she cooking something in her coffin? I like to do that. I get a little hungry, I have a little microwave in the coffin, and I cook it, and nice little microwave pizza. Suddenly, she sat up. Terrified, the thief scrambled to her feet, and he accidentally kicked over the lantern, and the light went out. Then he could hear Daisy climb out of the grave, but when she moved past him in the dark, he stood there frozen with fear, clutching the knife in his hand. When Daisy saw him, he pulled the shroud. She pulled her shroud around her and asked, "Who are you?" When the grave robber heard the corpse speak, he ran. Daisy shrugged her shoulders and walked on. Just another idiot laying in a graveyard in the middle of the night. And she never looked back. But in his fear and confusion, the thief fled in the wrong direction. He pitched headlong into her grave, fell on his knife, and stabbed himself while Daisy walked home. The thief bled to death. That is called instant karma. Now, a bit of more history on burials. The reason why they have a wake back in the times before medicine became modern, they wanted to make sure the person was dead before they buried them. But they also had people watching over the cemetery at night, not only to guard the graves of the freshly dead, but the term a dead ringer, that came from when they would bury people. And they would tie a string around the corpse's finger and have it attached to a bell above the ground. And if somebody heard the bell ring, they said, "Oh, we got a dead ringer." That meant the person was still alive, and that was also the term where "Saved by the Bell" came from. That is fact. Take it from a dead guy. I'm a dead ringer. Dang right I am. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the story and enjoyed a little bit of bonehead back there. You are all very fantastic people. I love you very much. You guys take care, stay safe out there. And I hope you have a very, very unpleasant, monstrous evening. This is Count Vampire, signing off for right now. We'll see you next week for another episode of Friday Night Frights. Until then, ciao, baby.